Hey guys, welcome back to another week of Colin Connection. I'm Will, and Fossil joined me last week in studio, but he's made his way down to Patterson Lakes. Must be nice and cool down there. Fossil, how are you going this week?
Yeah, good thanks, Will. Yeah, it was nice to get up to the studio, Will, with the family and the boys, and it was lovely. Yeah, it is a bit cool down here, but hopefully tomorrow night the boys can do a bit better than they did last week. So we definitely need a win, Will, and we need a lift from a lot of players, but we'll talk about that later on in the segment.
Yeah, exactly. It's the preview episode for round six, Carlton v Collingwood, 7:30 the MCG. It doesn't get much bigger than that, and especially the circumstances between both teams. Carlton, three losses in a row, although they had an improved effort last week against the Crows, and the Pies have dropped the last two. They should have won last week, but if you're not ahead on the scoreboard, it doesn't matter. They're fossils. So, yeah, like I said, the biggest rivalry through VFL AFL history. We've played 264 times, and the ledger is Collingwood 135 wins to Carlton 129 with four draws. Recent history, those on our side, Fossil with the Magpies, they've won the past 19 out of 23. I went through and looked at them myself. Between the two clubs at a winning percentage of 82.6. So hopefully recent history is on our side with that one. And I just had a quick question for you, Foss. You probably started watching footy back in the early to mid 1960s. I'll be nice about your age, but a question for you: how does a rivalry back then compare to the modern day rivalry? I know there was less teams and VFL very Victorian based, but in terms of Collingwood v Carlton and the whole build up, so take us through, from the 1960s upwards and what it looks like these days.
Oh, it was huge, William. It was, like they used to pack out the MCG or then Carlton's home ground or Collingwood's home ground at Victoria Park. But going back then, William, they only had one umpire, so she was a lot rougher and tougher. And the grounds aren't like they are today, nice and smooth. It was wet, slippery, muddy. But oh, they were tough games, William. I'll tell you what, you deserved every player that went out there. They'd fight, fight very hard for their club. But yeah, the rivalry. I think it was probably back then, probably a bit more than it is now, but they were very tough games. And, the crowds used to get into them, especially for Victoria Park or if it was at Carlton's home ground. But, yeah, I think, yeah, it steps back a long way. And, they always seem to get good crowds. It doesn't matter where they are on the ladder, it doesn't seem to worry them. Each game's different. And like you said, Collingwood have got a good record recently. But back in the day, it could be the Blues one time and then the Pies the next time. But yeah, no, she was tough, very tough football, William. A lot slower, a lot more hits, a lot more tackling, and I think the boys were pretty sore when they used to come off the ground. But yeah, no, it's been a good rivalry for years and years and years, and we're just hoping that the Pies can be in front when the siren goes tomorrow night. But yeah, no, they were tough games, Will, but it was very good, and well supported every game.
Yeah, well, fair enough. And I guess it speaks volumes when you talk to some of the older supporters, and it's probably partly what disappoints. We obviously have a lot of Carlton supporters in the family, but talking to older supporters, they've seen the 70s, 80s, 90s Carlton when they were pretty ruthless, and they didn't accept losing, and I guess that's a whole stigma around the club. Their supporters are crying out for that competitiveness, but Collingwood and Carlton seem to bring the best out of both teams. So hopefully it's a cracking contest tomorrow night, and it should be a decent crowd. I don't know how Melbourne's weather. It looks like it's going to be pretty cool and possible chance of some light showers. So yeah, it'd be interesting how many rock up, but I still think 75, 80,000 should probably get there. So hopefully it's a good contest, and the Magpies are 13th with a 2-3 record, and Carlton 16th with a 1-4 win-loss tally. So both of them would be desperate for this win. With the Blues, their changes this week. They've omitted three of them: O'Keefe, Boyd, and Dirksen. And the ins for them is young Dean. Wiedering returns from the concussion, and Will Hayward also gets a recall as well. They came off that tough gut around slog against the Crows last week. They probably did better than most people thought they would. Adelaide had their patches of dominance, but the Blues just didn't roll over. They got back within three goals with 10 minutes to go before Adelaide kicked away. So fairly decent effort there in a hostile environment. And Walsh and Cripps in the middle. They were very influential, especially early. And I just want to point out Cripps, he's going to be very crucial this week in that midfield battle. He had 29 touches, 9 tackles, and 7 clearances where Collingwood's been struggling this year. So they're going to have to do a pretty good job on shutting Paddy down. And hopefully that goes a long way to the Magpies winning and those Collingwood changes, Fossil.
Yeah, there's two changes, Will. Unfortunately, we lost Sidebottom and DeGoey, and they brought in Allen and Hayes, which they seem to be making the same changes all the time. And these boys, they're in and out, so it must be very hard for them, to get consistency into their games. But I thought they might have looked at a couple of others, but they're gone for Allen and Hayes, so hopefully they can step in and take over from Sidebottom and DeGoey. But yeah, I was a bit surprised. I thought they might have tried West or somebody up forward because we have been struggling to kick goals. I think, the first 5 matches, I think the highest score between the two sides is 87 points. So I think the hardest thing will be this week, William, is for the goal umpires to stay awake because if we're only going to get small scores, it could be interesting to see which one of them goes to sleep first. But yeah, no, their forward line, they've really got to start the fire this week. They've been disappointing because if you go through the first 4 or 5 weeks, other than the Dacos boys, most of our best players have been in the back half of the field. So we need to really step up, forward to the centre line there, and our disposal's got to pick up too. So hopefully they can rectify that this week. But yeah, I was a bit surprised that they went with the two ruckmen. I know they got Pitney and they got a couple of talls, but they're not really tall. So I thought they might have just put Cameron on Pitney, but they've gone with Steen again, where I thought they might have gone for a Parker or a Swasling or somebody like that. But they know better than us, will. But that's the way I would have went, especially with the conditions. I think it's going to be a bit wet, and it does get a bit greasy, so the ball's probably going to be on the ground a lot. But yeah, a little bit surprised, but like I said, well, hopefully Alan Hayes can prove me wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my key matchup for this week, I did go with that ruck battle because it's going to be very interesting. They did say light showers, so hopefully that stays away for our sake with those ruckmen. But Carlton do have a fairly tall side, as you pointed out. Oscar Steen in game 4 and Darcy against Pitney. Hudson O'Keefe was dropped this week, and he was their secondary ruckman last week. I thought he did an okay job, but Lewis Young might be the only one to come in and give a chop out. He's 202 centimeters, so he might compete at times when Darcy goes in, and it'll be very interesting. But I think Oscar needs to play a bit more in the ruck and take on that responsibility. They'll just give up the flexibility with DC. If Howe goes forward, I think the DC will help out behind the ball, but I'm predicting that Howe might stay back. They've got Harry Mackay and oh, sorry, I forgot his name for a second. The other fella they got down forward, Kemp, sorry, Brody Kemp. Um, so yeah, I think that Howe would be a really good option on Kemp, and I can see DC playing a bit more forward tomorrow night. We need a contested marking target, so something we've been lacking a lot. So I think if they had DC up forward, then it'll just help get the ball to ground if he doesn't clunk it, and then that brings in the likes of Elliott and Schultz and the smaller guys who have been putting on pressure but haven't been able to reward themselves in front of the big sticks. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully it goes that way tomorrow. But a very interesting watch on that ruck battle. Which key matchup are you looking forward to this week?
Well, I think the midfield will, like you said, Cripps has been in really good form and Walsh has been in really good form, and they got Ute and a couple of others. So I think, Dacos, Anderson, McQuarrie in and out, Pendlebury, they've got a few they can join there. Longs, Steele, even if they have to, or Crisp or Josh Dacos. So they've got a few options, but I think they've really got a lockdown. Like I think Walsh last week had 15 possessions in the first quarter. So they've got to try and stop that, and get the supply into our forward line and get it in quickly because, like you said, there's a few question marks on a few players, like the small forwards. So hopefully Hayes, McQuarrie, Elliott, Schultz, he's been all right. He's been at the fall of the ball, but unfortunately he missed one and then a couple of snapshots, whether they weren't talking to him, he might have thought he was clear and he took that extra step and got caught. But yeah, and then the McStay and memory have got to be really accountable. I think, with Wiedering back there, I think they've either got to try and pull him out of that comfort zone a bit. We'll bring him probably further up the ground if they can, depending who he's playing on, or take him to the side and then probably attack through the middle more, and try and keep him out of the game as much as they can, because if he just sits back there with the other big fella, they'll just park themselves there and they'll mark everything. So they've got to try and stop that. And also, too, up in the forward line last week, I noticed, well, when it was a bit wet, the ball went over the back a lot. Like Schultz was coming at the front, but there was nobody over the back. And I think two trickled through for a point and two went out of bounds. And we had a crummer over the back. We could have got a couple of goals, especially when you only go down by one. So it's very important. So, I think they've got to get themselves in the right spots, and hopefully their field kicking will pick up a little bit. It hasn't been as good recently. They've turned the ball over a bit, and it's cost them a couple of games that we probably should have won. So that's where I'm looking for improvement from the smaller forwards, and hopefully, it doesn't matter if we've got 10 or 11, if they can, two or three of them kick two or three, and then the rest share it around. Hopefully we can kick a winning score. But yeah, the midfield will be interesting, and I think, like you said, the rucks, Cameron and Pitney, and then I think Frampton will go to Mackay, and then if they can take care of the other paddles, the back line's been really good. So yeah, so hopefully, you know, we can kick more than 87 points, William, and win the game.
Yeah, exactly. The forward line has been a question mark this year, so fingers crossed. We'll get on to our predictions this week, Fossil. I'll let you go first. The most disposals for the Pies.
I think Dacos will have a big one, William. I think Nicky will absolutely blitz him. I think he'll have 33 disposals. And I think for our goals, I think I'm not quite sure. It's a bit hard, William, this one. I think Elliot might be due. I think William, I think he should kick two or three.
As long as you don't put the muzz on him again, hopefully you can have a good game. Boss, and how much are the Pies winning by?
Well, I think it's going to be close, William, because I think the conditions might have a lot to do with it, but I think we might get up by 12 points.
Couple of kicks. It's been generally close so far this year. Well, for my disposals, I agree. And firstly, congratulations, Nick Dacos, game 100, and could arguably be the best 100 first games from a player. Go back to some John Coleman, some of the older types of legends in the game. But no, he's been absolutely awesome, and we're very lucky to have the likes of the Dacos brothers running around for us. So I'm going to go for 35, matching that famous number on his back, 35 touches for Nick Dacos. Most goals, Schultzy. I think he'll make amends. A couple of those ones you mentioned before, he was actually at the back of the pack. He just either slipped out of his hands at the last second, or he tried to dance around a player and he could have just had a kick straight away. So he'll learn from his mistakes, and he's been trying hard every single week, Schultz. So hopefully he can get on the end of a few and reward himself this week. And I think the Pies, if they bring the same intensity and capitalize this week, I think we'll win by 23 points. So hopefully they can make the best of their chances. And yeah, I'm hoping for a nice, comfortable 23 points, Fossil.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, I think, yeah, I'd rather that than the closed one sitting on the edge of the seat. But yeah, but there's like everything. Well, they just got to get out there, do their best. But their ball use is very important, and that those centre clearances, they got to tidy it up a bit too. If they can get it in quickly, and it gives the forwards a better chance one out. So hopefully we can have a good game there and a good all round game. And like you said, hopefully the Pies get home.
Exactly. And just last thing, guys, for this episode, the game day competition, it's up to $30 this week, Fossil, $30 voucher. So Flag Pies is a group on Facebook, guys. So get across to that and give us a like, and follow our work we do. We post the videos that we record, and some other stuff as well. So I've got some new players in the mix this week. I had the Dacos brothers for disposals, and I've got a different goal kicker as well this week, Fossils. So remember, guys, to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And the Facebook group is called Flag Pies. Just try and bring you some weekly content about our mighty pies. So fingers crossed, Fossil. And hopefully, guys, a nice week ahead for the Magpie Army. And yeah, best of luck to the boys.
There you go, Pies. Yeah, we need a big win, Will, so we can have a good weekend.
Exactly. All right, guys, go Pies. Until next time.
All right. See
See
you,
you
Will.
later.
Go,
See
Pies.
see
Bye.
you, mate.